So I'm very happy to welcome Alexander Kobrin to the Fanfare Talks on Sunday, the UK time, which is going to be released. It's usually one time a month. And we are going to talk about his upcoming Beethoven full recording of several Beethoven sonatas. And the first CD is already released by Central Records. So, Alexander, very welcome.
Thank you very much
Just
for
for the
having me.
beginning, I would like to ask you about your childhood in Moscow, because we do share this in common. You and me, we are both from Moscow and have a childhood.
There you go. There you go.
Please
Well,
tell me something.
I was born in Moscow. It was an accident. I'm the only person in my family who was born in Moscow. Everybody else have nothing to do with Russia at all. And then I entered the Gnesing Music School, where I studied with Tatiana Zelikman. I actually had another teacher for first couple of years, Elena Plashkevich, very wonderful teacher. And then she went for maternity leave. And then I had to be moved to someone else. And that move resulted in 11 years with Tatiana Zelikman, after which I entered the Moscow Conservatory with Lev Naumov.
That's amazing. So you have studied several years before you came to the United States. So you have enjoyed the Russian school merrily.
I did all my studies in Moscow, actually. I graduated from Moscow, from a master's degree in October 2005. So after I won Kleiber. And then basically, and you know, in August, Naumov died that year. And there was really nothing that would keep me any longer in Russia as residency. And of course, by that time, it was clear that, you know, I had a lot of already engagements in US, and somehow it clicked. I mean, I remember that I never considered US as a place for myself, because Clyburn was actually the very first time I went to United States. Never been there. Yeah.
And this makes the counter story, doesn't it? When Clyburn came to Moscow and has won Soviet competition, so you made the counterpoint to Clyburn.
Totally.
How did it feel like?
Well, I mean, it was fun because first of all, it was amazing to meet him in person, and we spent some time together. It was absolutely one of my most memorable episodes in my life, professional and personal, because the man was of an extraordinary quality. And yeah, and then, you know, it was almost hard to explain how natural I felt being in the United States, and probably because of the comfort of life. I wouldn't say even comfort, but convenience of living. And of course, I've got a lot of engagements, and I had my host family, which I still keep in touch, and we see each other. Unfortunately, wife has died, but I keep in touch with husband, and yeah, it's basically transformed my life, and I'm no regrets. And I considering especially the fact that my departure from Russia was inevitable anyway. It's kind of showed the direction where.
Yes. Did you have a plan to get out of the country for many years, or it was more a sudden decision to go?
No, actually, it happened gradually, because even though my status says immigrant, I had an immigrant visa. I kind of gradually left because I applied for my green card, but because of a lot of concerts in Europe, and I was still teaching in Gnessin Academy at that time.
Yes.
I did all my paperwork in Russia, and then there was this moment where I had to leave, where I had to, you know, make a decision, and yeah, and that was easy. That was obviously considering everything that was going on.
Can you remember? I guess you were teaching something between 2005 or 2000s, and then later. Can you recall really significant changes in the cultural life, in the, you know, in the conscious life among people, especially in the scene of classical music or art. Could you see the differences or changes? Because I can remember very well a huge shift in minds of people, something between the end of the 90s and suddenly around 2005, people started to change rapidly and really in a direction which was really concerning. I remember 2014, I've said I'm an immigrant as you as well for over 20 years, but in 2014, I've said I really want to give this passport away because I'm just ashamed to keep it. I can't identify myself anymore with my home.
Right.
I would like to forget it. I mean, I can't forget it, but the change was really significant. And 2014, we could anticipate that bad things are going to happen with our country. How did you experience this situation? How
Well,
was it?
you covered a huge gap between '05 and 14. And I think, culturally, nothing has really been changing in terms of, people would still be coming and doing concerts, and everybody would see Russia as a cultural place and separating politics and culture. But as you mentioned, the minds started changing, and I think that's the main thing, because somehow the audience, the society allowed the 2014 happen. Considering that I was already out in 2009, I was coming back every year to Moscow because I had a concert, my solo recital in Moscow Conservatory every year. And then we had the festival, Chamber Music Festival in January, which was called Homecoming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a very interesting story also, but which actually on the personal level, that festival was symbolizing the return of all us who were coming from the same school. We were returning to home and to make music. And then that was no longer possible. I mean, the last festival was in January 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, then even not many people came. It was a kind of a little bit different vibe to the festival already. But it was clear it cannot continue. And yeah, the mindset of people was changing, and in a very strange way, which I could never understand. It's I don't want to be, well, you don't live here, so I can say that to me it's always the same as people voting for Trump.
Absolutely.
It's very unexplained, or actually well explained, but very scarily invisible process where
Mm-hmm.
you talk to people and you see them this way, and they say certain things, and then all of a sudden, practically overnight, uh,
Yes.
it's a very different person. I was always looking outside of Russia. I didn't never plan to remain there. I'm happy personally that I never had to experience the runaway like a lot
Mm-hmm.
of my friends after 2022, and which was very dramatic and awful. And you know, so I'm not going to say that I am a victim. I'm not a victim at all. My departure was planned, and nobody was refusing me or resisting uh, my movement and my desire. Uh, but speaking of shame, yeah, it's a very interesting phenomenon. We who live outside of country for a long time somehow feel responsibility. It's not even it's a shame, yes, but then there is this responsibility, which and almost guilt
Yes.
for what's
Absolutely. Yes.
going on, and that's where we are on the mercy of our art as a salvation, for ourselves,
Absolutely.
and to be able to do something in I don't even know why we're doing this, as a gesture to show the world we're not black, we're white, or or to actually just give ourselves a chance.
Maybe, or maybe even to save the proper identity of our national belonging. And with this, I would like to come back to your festival, the homecoming, because I know the festival.
Yeah.
And to me, it looked like, there's some like in Russia, which is partly cultural, in an aspect of culture, really conservative, and in all this, thing with Gergiev, which is also really one side, it has just one side to show to the world outside that, we play Nutcracker and Swansea. So your festival was like an island of a culture which builds bridges outside of Russian home. With this, many people attended the festival, and I was following the festival as well. And in particular, I loved the programming of the festival. It was really amazingly interesting. The combination between really neglected pieces, well-known pieces, contemporary pieces. So it had not only a social mission to build a bridge, a cultural bridge to Europe, because the style of festival was merely European, but also to enlighten the audience. So to me, it was one of the most important festivals in Russia in general, and I was really extremely sad when I've seen that the festival died together with the dignity of the country on the same day. Uh, could you just tell me a little bit more how was your experience of building up the festival, and what do you think the impact on the Russian audience? How did it work? Could you do you feel really successful that you did it, or you feel rather sort of frustration that it didn't bear more fruits as it could?
Well, a little background story. This festival was organized by two schoolmates of mine. They are older, a little bit older. Roman Mintz, who now is teaching in Birmingham, in UK, in Royal Academy, I guess Royal Conservatory. I'm sorry if I call it wrong. Yeah, forgive me, people of Birmingham. And Dmitry Bulgakov, who now lives in Estonia, in Tallinn, teaches in Italian Academy for already many years. And initially, the concept of this festival was very simple. It was absolutely had no agenda whatsoever. It was a simple way for classmates, friends to come back to Russia because they were all studying abroad, which I never did. And just to come and play concerts. And at the beginning, it started, we did it in Lessing School. And then more and more people joined, and then it became something more exciting because one way or another, all of us were living very intense life outside of Russia. And the meaning of homecoming, this is guys were already so sick of this question because literally at every interview, the interviewer would ask, "What does it mean, homecoming? What's the meaning?" Because really, only small portion of people would actually qualify for this, going back, because a lot of us were actually living in Russia. And I think the answer to that was that the festival was some sort of a return to childhood, almost. Return to something that is very intimate, very personal, and very precious. And the programming was exciting, and this is all kudos to guys because they did enormous research, and I think the balance was great between conservative old music, let's say, and new. And composers were writing for the festival, which was amazing. And no, really, I think this festival was a huge part of my life. And then because what happened on February 23rd was, well, for me, it was 23rd because I was in the US. What happened was that childhood, that something very precious and personal was cut off. And it's like you lost, you part of your life was erased, pretty much. And the end of the festival was quite natural in this sense because it could not exist in this new reality, or I would say it tried to exist a few years before the war, where the climate was already clear. But at the same time, I don't think anybody was closing eyes on what's going on. And it is also because when you say, our festival had impact on Russian something. Unfortunately, I don't think that was the case. It was very exclusive event for Moscow because still I mean that Moscow and the rest of Russia is a very different story. And I think we had our audience who knew us since we were 5 years old, and a lot of people who would attend concerts in Moscow concert life. I think they saw us as something like this little island of something different, independent, new, fresh, and high quality. And then, of course, as anything that is independent and unique could not exist in the format of minds. And for me, honestly, it was very shocking to see how people who we knew and who would be talking every day. I can even go further. My family, my own family, where like I stopped recognizing people. I can't believe I've been friends with these people. And yeah, so, and I'm also very happy because then at this very same time with January, similar format was going on in Estonia through past, I think maybe 15, 16 years. And then somehow that project became the foundation for the festival we're running right now in Estonia, which involves Ukrainian students.
In this context, you say that the festival became an island or something exclusive for a certain part of audience or certain circle of people. We can't deny that the classical music in general is more and more an exclusive good for a certain circle of people. And it hasn't been that way. Do you remember, even in Moscow in the 80s, so many young people were attending concerts. So many of us students were attending concerts, and that was a part of our life. But today, it looks like it is really more and more elitist. Why is it the case? And why the independent movement is yours with your festival is always sort of weak? Why is it just for a certain amount of people? Why can't we get an outreach as we really deserve to have? What do you think? Why the conservative scene of classical music is sort of winning over us? Why?
Conservative movement in classical music.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we want to hear Swansea, and we want to see the Nutcracker, and we want to have this, only three one in the same program. If you offer at least one composer which is not that known, then it's better out of the program. So
I would agree actually here. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe it's different in Europe, but in US,
yes.
Actually, new music is very, very big now. And actually, if you're not including new music or music of underrepresented composers or minority group composers, that actually would be very weird. But what you asked before about what comparing now and 80s, so the simple answer would be in 80s, there was no internet and no social media. And another word you mentioned, you used the word elitist, but I see actually music did not become classical music the way how we think about it, you and me, or I can just speak for myself. It didn't, what used to be for a mass use, filling up concerts of audiences of all ages, became kind of shrunk a little bit and became some sort of a space for people who still believe that the classical music should have that kind of vibe and attention and approach versus new. And I don't think I would offend anybody to say they use the word entertainment vibe of classical music in nowadays. You know, and this is a very, very, very big difference. And when we say classical music is fading, well, we have to define what do we mean by that? What part of classical music is fading? If you're talking about full packed houses with classical music all over the world, yeah, we have that. But it depends what's happening on stage at that moment. Is that classical music you think to see when you say 80s? Because when you say 80s, it means still Horowitz, yeah, 80s,
Yes,
Richter,
absolutely.
Gills, and tons of
Mm.
musicians, and we still looking at this golden tradition of highest intelligent and intellectual quality,
Yes,
which is completely destroyed nowadays. And
exactly. And that's the point. And I really would like to point. I can't wait to start to talk about Beethoven, but exactly, you brought it to the point. So why is it dying out, the intellectual um, point in music? What is happening?
several reasons. First, the paradox is, when there was no YouTube,
Yeah.
and I was personally, I remember very well, I was lining up in Paris in the Virgin Megastore store just because we didn't have any money, but we were listening to recordings. We were hunting recordings, it was this whole effort, and it was so valuable. Now, uh, everything is of a very easy access. And strangely enough, students don't know those recordings. And this paradox to me is the representation of what is happening, because when everything became accessible to the point when you don't really know what's good, what's not, the criteria of excellence is lost completely. Because I give you an example. I have um, I don't teach kids. I only teach in the university, in the higher team. But sometimes parents reach out and would you please consider things? And so they send me links of their children, which is, I mean, children, teenagers, 12, 13, 14, 15. And there was this kid um, who was 13 years old. And he has a YouTube channel. And he has over 25,000 um, subscribers. So that is the answer to your question, what's going on? Because
Agree.
uh, because it became some sort of entertainment business, as we say,
Yes.
and to me, classical music and entertainment business cannot
No.
go.
No.
And so then you have to make a choice. And this is something that I talk to my students also. They actually ask me, what do you do? I mean, everybody wants to have a career. Everybody wants to play. Everybody wants to go out there and share their music. But how do I do that? Because even winning a major competition doesn't help. I have to do something extra. I have to do, I have to do all these Instagram stuff. I have to do all the social media things, and even that doesn't guarantee. Then I'm doing my best. I'm working hard. I'm reading all the books you told me. I'm listening all the recordings you told me, and then this and that, and then this guy has 50,000 subscribers and he plays awful. Uh, so it's a new reality where lack of taste, lack of understanding what is the purpose. Because you cannot make, uh, it's like going to a museum and you see a small painting. It's you cannot imagine um, thousands of people looking at this painting at the very same time and cheering and because it's a very spiritual experience. And so when the spiritual experience, which is to me classical music is personal experience, spiritual, is put up on this entertainment visual effect. Because what's so terrible about social media? Yeah, it's visual. Why is it bad that people don't read books? Because there is no development of a spirituality and inner imagination. So we are fighting I don't know, technical progress. We're fighting the way that our life progresses, whether we like it or not. But in a way, I'm kind of pessimist unless we maintain or find a way to preserve the spirituality of classical music.
Mhm.
And through education, through our example, we would never fill up
So
a
you would
stadium.
say that classical experience of classical music is a sort of spiritual experience, like you go to the temple or church or synagogue
Exactly.
or whatever.
Precisely. Precisely.
And that's why I'm telling also, I can't stop to explain one thing, that the classical music should stay where it is possibly. I'm telling to people who are not from Soviet Union that to our time, people came to the concert hall and changed their shoes, came up the ladder up into the hall where it was a certain atmosphere of something special, spiritual, something really outside of the daily life. And they were in a mood and in a state to perceive the musical content. If we take it out, and I like the same, like just imagine some priest or rabbi will go to the food court and starts to bless people around, it will be just a caricature. It will die immediately. And so it is with music. So maybe, and with this question we come to Beethoven, we really need a balance between the conservatism and to go with the flow. We can't just stop and freeze. We can't say, no, we don't want to use an iPhone, or we don't use the social media, because it's pretty nice thing, which we can use very much to our advantage. But the genuity of genre must stay where it is in order to keep it. And so when you made the decision to record several Beethoven sonatas, there are several recordings of Beethoven sonatas, we can say with Haskell, with Richter, and you are going and make this decision to record them, despite the fact that there are a lot of recorded of Beethoven sonatas. What is your drive to do it? And also, when I was listening to your recording, and of course, I couldn't don't listen to the last three on YouTube. I just couldn't start the interview without listening to the number 32. So your approach to Beethoven is fascinating to me, because it is sort of historically informed and right, but completely independent. So if I would need to describe your playing just with one word, I would say it is as independent as Beethoven mind was and still be it. So can you please tell me about your personal relationship to Beethoven and what makes you so independent?
Ooh. Well, first of all, thank you for your assessment. I find it quite flattering, because this is what I think I've been struggling most of my life with, as you mentioned, because I obviously grew up and with all these great artists of the past who recorded basically everything. And you can mention Gilel's recordings of Beethoven and Schnabel and so many others. For me, the decision to record Beethoven was, as everything I do is extremely personal. And I didn't really think, because if we start thinking about, well, everybody played that, then we should just stop playing, because everything been already played in all possible ways. And sorry for violists, especially, where the repertoire is kind of just throwing it out there. So yeah, so then um, it became. I just realized that. Well, I played a lot of them, all those sonatas, for different reasons. When I was a student and when I doing competitions and so on. But somehow I think I grew up into Beethoven. I don't think we all understand the value of this composer, and we really understand that, yes, it's been a wonderful composer who had problems with hearing, and everybody has to learn it, because for some unknown reason, you just have to learn it, and then everybody has to play Beethoven sonatas auditions, and then you have to hate it after all, because you have 55 people playing the same sonata. But then right now, I truly believe that every student has to go through what I've been going through, and I've been going through it long and painful, because I started recording them during COVID. This is basically was the trigger, because all of a sudden life stopped, and I found myself, like some other colleagues of mine, that were very happy. They were, learning a lot and doing stuff, again, with social media and all that stuff. I found myself being completely paralyzed. And that project became, again, I got the idea. I called a friend of mine, and he said, yeah, let's do this. And then, well, we have to find the venue. And then the venue reaches out and says, hey, we have this concert series, but now it's dead. So how about you just come down and it's all yours. It's empty. Just use it. And then the piano, and I was looking for a sound, for a particular sound that I wanted to, which piano I should use. And that was probably the most difficult, most time-consuming choice and selection. And then I heard Pletnyov playing last three sonatas on Kawai, and I thought, oh, that's the sound I want. And then Shigeru Kawai were very amazing by delivering piano, and it's been great since then. And yeah, it became, as I said, spiritual. It became personal. It became, now I know how I don't want to play them. So maybe in 20 years, I'll do it again in a different way. But you do live through this journey. And as a musician now, the spectrum of music written after Beethoven comes into in a very different light. And then, of course, you understand how great Beethoven was, not only because how innovative he was and how brave, courageous he was, how he didn't get, speaking of independency, yeah, this is another unique part of him, where he had guts to be who he was and not really care what people say and people think. And he was lucky, I think, that the society welcomed him. He was absolutely in the right moment for the society to be able to welcome this new energy, new power in arts. And I'm very stressed about last two concerts, which I have. Yeah, and I should mention that recording led to the project of playing 8 concerts. How many? Yes, 8 concerts during the school year at Eastman, in Hatch Hall, which is a very beautiful, intimate hall. And I have 2 more concerts to go. And I'm very stressed because it's going to be premiere of Hammerklavier, which I've never played before. People say I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy, so we'll see how that goes. And putting all 4 last 4 sonatas in the same concert is also a crazy idea. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm a little bit sad. It's a little bit.
Why?
we're going to an end, because
Uh-huh.
because it feels like, oh, now I could, I really could do things differently, and to relive it. Maybe it's actually it's really, it came to the point when this music has to be personal, has to be, you cannot treat it as dogma, as we actually all used to do. We will
Exactly.
all.
And now I would like to ask you, how right is it to treat the music as dogma? Is it, is there any, is there any sense of doing so at all? Because personally, for me, it is really quite unnecessary to do so. The music, to me, every composer is alive and modern while it is on stage, while the performance, every composer is alive. So which sort of dogma? I can remember when I came to study to Vienna, I was rather young and bold, and I came directly from Moscow. So the teachers were really obsessed with classical articulations above everything. And one such a teacher told me, that is really not like Mozart wanted it. And I have asked him, have you been there with Mozart together? How can you possibly know what Mozart wanted? Can you tell me, please? And he couldn't answer. So, but nonetheless, we really need to have a certain context to the tradition, to the style, to the historical aspects. How can we find a balance while coming together with music by Beethoven?
I don't think we should look for a balance. I think, first of all, there is information which we call education. Yeah. So we really need to learn. Yeah. And it's very interesting because we accumulate this knowledge, we accumulate this information that we get from books, from teachers.
Yeah.
But then at some point of our life, we look at it and we do everything opposite. But I believe that to be convincing, to be natural about it, it's not possible without actually have that background, that knowledge that led you to form your ideas and form your own take on this music, because we are all unique. And it's like, um, I tell to my students, I put three people at the very same piano, and I ask you to play exactly the same three notes, and they all will come out very differently, which technically speaking, it cannot be explained, because from physiology of playing, the weight of the hammer doesn't change, the thickness of the string doesn't change, nothing changes, except for unknown mysterious reason, emotional approach to a particular touch affects the sound and how does it come out of the instrument. So we do work with something that belongs only to us, to each individual. And I think that's what a little bit missing in our education, alongside with background, alongside with information we have to understand the style, the taste, how people were thinking, how Beethoven was thinking, and we can understand it by reading his, I don't know, letters, reading books he was reading, and so forth. It's a very simple way, actually. You don't have to be with Mozart back there to kind of understand what he was thinking. You just get to that aesthetics, and there are a lot of ways to do it. But while you're doing that, I think students are not given an encouragement to have their own imagination, have their own opinion on it. And if you think about it, students are being judged for about 20 years of their life. What I mean is that we all had to do exams. We all had to, obey our teachers, and so forth and so forth. And then you graduate, and they say, "Well, you're on your own now. Try to think for yourself." And I think if that is not encouraged while you're studying, I think that's when we have musicians who are just trying to find the correct answer, which doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
One single answer for one piece, then it would be life would be very boring. As I already mentioned, we don't have to play then. So I think it's a biological process. It's that's why music is so unique in a way, because you cannot, there is a poetry and there is a word, and of course we can hear the word differently, we pronounce the word different, but it's still the word. It's still something that we can absolutely relate. You and me, well, yes, that's the word we're talking about. But in music, everything is very subjective, and you're working with the sound. You're working with it's like you're waking up and you're looking outside your window and it's sunny, and you feel differently if it was raining. Very simple thing. And music to me is the same thing. It's you listen to this phrase and you feel that way. The problem comes when you don't feel anything. Well, then you're in the wrong profession. But if you feel
Yeah.
something, that would be the
Uh,
problem.
yeah, the problem is also when the audience is not feeling really anything, is sleeping. That is another problem. And I would like to come back a little bit to the impact of the audience. So we have certainly a problem that the audience is strongly over 50 or over 70 or over 80. And young people are struggling with classical concerts very much. But do you think the problem is the audience or the artists or both? And how can we solve it?
No, I think the problem is in the education system. It's very simple. I will never forget. I was stopped by the police officer on the traffic light in Moscow for some very minor offense of mine. And you probably, I don't know if you were driving in Moscow when you were there, but you're having a conversation. And he was asking me, what am I doing? And I said, I teach piano and I play piano. I said, oh, yeah, yeah, I like to play Bach in school. And and that is what's going on, because having a piano in your house, in your apartment, was part of the education. It was not, it was very strange if you didn't have a piano.
Yes, yes, it was like today a computer or
Exactly,
something.
exactly.
This is a coffee machine.
Yeah.
In our
And,
houses, everyone had a piano.
yeah.
And nowadays, it's something very rare. More so, you can find a lot of old pianos, and not that old pianos on the garbage heap.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I think we're asking all these questions about, how do we save classical music, this and that. Classical music doesn't need to be saved. We have to save ourselves a little bit. Uh, and if our children or students from the very young age are exposed to the music, if it's as it's been, you know, through the radio or through regular concerts, and if that is part of your upbringing, if that is part of your culture, then uh, it's proven by all possible doctors that classical music affects the brain in the best possible way. And then we complete our circle and going back to social media, to phones, and when you have children at school, what the dangers they have, and the computer, and this and this and that. It's a very hard environment to be, because for the young, because there are a lot of their kids, their friends at school all have iPhones and he doesn't, and why
Mm.
does he not? And it's a task. Of course iPhone is great, of course computer is great. I would be the last person to complain, because without the computer we would not be having this conversation right now,
Exactly.
and Zoom, and thank you very much, and so forth. But alongside with this, if the schools, if families, but schools especially, if classical music was part of the curriculum, if that was same as math, same as any other subject, important subject, um, then I truly believe that this would, first of all, lead to a different approach to classical music and open more curiosity. But it would also put more responsibility on the artists. What do they deliver from the stage? Because I think the word that is missing right now, that there is entertainment in music and there is lack of responsibility. And in order to be successful, which is also a very interesting word, what do we, success for everybody is different, right? We understand it different. We want different kind of success. And so the easy The fast food effect, yeah, if you want to feed the audience, what happens with fast food? It's delicious, right? Let's face it, it's really good. But then half an hour later, you're hungry again, and that's how they get obese, and then all bad things happen. So it's very easy to go to McDonald's or any other brands, and it takes time to cook a nice steak. You practice. There is a temperature thing, this that, and that it's an effort versus something that is very accessible when you don't really ask a question: is this worth it? Is it good? Is it what it is all about? And that's where artists come up front with no responsibility, and they are being very well, selfish in the sense that this is all about the benefit, self-benefit.
And that's exactly where I would like to ask you a last question. To me, the education, the lack of musical education, or nowadays even cultural education, because more and more young people are losing the ability to read and understand what is written not only in a book but also in a newspaper. But really, it is important to cultivate and help for amateur players and music lovers to come in touch with what is happening with music on stage. But that point is sort of painful to me. I developed an edition actually of Beethoven sonatas, which is suited especially for amateurs and students how to deal with the text. And I'm really convinced that making sort of arrangements of really important and big pieces, let's say like Opus 111, number 32, but with OCS, that amateur musician can enjoy this piece despite the limits of their technical ability. I'm convinced that it is reasonable to make such arrangements and to enlarge the accessibility of well-known and complicated pieces. Could you imagine either to give concerts together with semi-professional musicians or even make this sort of editions?
We could think of many ways. It's all about the purpose, because the problem is not to find the way. The problem is to actually start looking for a way, because in many US schools you have bands which play million arrangements of major classical works. Army bands. It's the best thing that happened to this country. One of the best. Army bands are of extreme quality. They're all but they are not considered to be professional classical music. It's an army band, right? So we can find ways to collaborate and to promote classical music. There are many, including many community programs for that. But then it will go again to the question of who wants it and who is going to put it into place. And the first, when you hear a financial cut, the first program that is going to be cut is a music or art related program. Collaboration of any sort for promotion of classical music, just for the sake of having classical music being around, in schools, that would, help kids pick up an instrument and play it without having the idea to become a professional musician, because it's hard, and you kind of have to have a talent for it, right? A little bit, but it's not that difficult to play an instrument. And I think that's what our society is missing from time of Beethoven, where it was absolutely normal to play several instruments, and not only by professional musicians, but by aristocracy, by princes and kings and so forth. It was part of the who you are as a rounded person.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm completely at your point. Just as I usually like to close the interview, you're free to choose any question you like and ask me.
Oh,
Because it's like chamber music. I like to change the places.
oh,
Please
oh,
feel
that's off
free.
guard, off guard. I I don't really have any questions for you. It's especially
That's nice.
because I need to go and practice my Beethoven because I have a concert of Beethoven program
So
tomorrow.
then have a nice practice. Thank you very much for the lovely conversation.
Thank you,
I
Hannah.
can't wait to hear all the volumes and be writing the review together with Colin. And have a nice day ahead and good
Thank you,
practice.
Hannah. The only thing I might ask you, if you could send me by email your statement, your assessment of my playing. I really love that independent and something else. Oh, that was just I'm gonna write it down and put it in my collection of remarks.
Certainly, certainly, with pleasure. Okay, have a nice day.
Take care. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.